Today we're going to do a 2024 Bookish drama tier list. This is all of the drama going on in the Bookish sphere that I know about, starting in January 2024 and going through the end of May. The summaries I give are not the end-all be-all. I will be linking in the description below to other videos and resources for more information if you want to chase that down. The goal here is to round up the drama and give some quick hot takes instead of having to make individual videos for everything, starting with a section I'm calling author drama. Joe Hill, who's Stephen King's son, gave a take on Threads that was basically, if you're not leaving a 4 or 5 star review, don't even bother, because most readers don't understand that 3 stars means fine. They think it means not worth your time. To me, this shows a complete misunderstanding of the market, as if I see a book that only has 4 and 5 star reviews, I kind of think something fishy is going on. And on top of that, I like 1, 2, and 3 star reviews. They give me information that let me know if I want to read a book. Also, if we're talking about the book influencer market, which is part of how you get free marketing and publicity to your book, it kind of thrives off that negative book rant. So even if it's not your book, it's going to have to be some book somewhere some of the time. The combination of him being such a widely published author, being so long in the game, as well as having a family member that should also understand the game and be informing his takes, and also this just being a talked about to death topic, I'm going to go ahead and throw Joe Hill in the never talk about this again category. There's no need for him to share this on main. Next is going to be Nora Roberts, author known for her hot takes. In this case, she gave a scathing blog review responding to a bunch of avid readers who wanted her to have one of her characters have a family, after she said that character was not going to have a family. Obviously, Nora Roberts can write whatever she wants and make whatever decision she wants with her own characters, and it's not cool for people to harass her, or in this case really be harassing her social media person. That said, I do feel there's some nuances to readers critiquing authors or providing feedback that's not 100% adequately handled in this situation. This came up on my radar, but overall for me, I would just pass on this conversation. I don't really care. Next is going to be some drama with Candy Carly Williams, the author of the book Queenie. So this particular little bit of author drama almost entirely passed me by because I think the story was rehashed or rebroke the same weekend that we learned about Freydis Moon and the same weekend that Readers Take Denver happened. But it basically seems to boil down to a conversation about whether or not authors should take criticism or how they should do it. Most people seem to believe this author didn't take criticism well and came out swinging in a public sphere. I'm gonna keep it real. I hadn't heard of this author before this drama broke. They wrote a book that's gonna have a Hulu adaptation where I don't plan to read the book Queenie or watch the adaptation. So in general, I just think what's going on here a little bit is not about me. I wanna keep an eye on it so I know, but I'm not really well prepared to talk about it or have strong feelings one way or the other. Next is gonna be Lauren M. Davis, who earlier this year accused Miss Marvelous of plagiarism because both of their books happened to have a main character who had the power to control the sun, and they also happened to share an agent at the time, question mark. I'm gonna link a video from Reads with Rachel with the full development, but basically Lauren M. Davis is kind of crazy and sort of went after another author for no reason. A little bit, I loved the drama because it was so incredibly petty and stupid, and also seemed to be trying to build on those plagiarism claims, because plagiarism has been a hot button topic since H Bomber Guy put out that video. And for that reason, I'm gonna put it up here with Can't Get Enough. Also, I love it because it was so cut and dry, and it was a woman just making a fool of herself on main and really either truly believing it or thinking all press is good press and this was gonna get people to read her stuff. And I think she's been left in the dust and mainly forgotten, but it was definitely a moment of everyone laughing at the clown for a hot minute, and she's the one who went out there and chose to be the clown. Next is going to be Lauren K. Hamilton, who came out and advised people not to self-publish without traditionally publishing first. She more or less said that people who self-publish have given up on traditional publishing and that it doesn't make any sense to do that, and she said a bunch of negative things about self-publishing. I will link to a video that goes into further detail, but basically she looked like a fool because it didn't acknowledge the difference between traditional trad publishing, independent publishing, and why one person might choose something else. Like, first of all, it didn't acknowledge that traditional publishing doesn't do as much for you as it used to do. It also doesn't acknowledge that you could be waiting forever with traditional publishing and never have it happen. Where in independent publishing, if you come up with your own plan, you can go ahead and get that done and, you know, market yourself and try to find your audience and do it that way. If you have a little bit of your own inbuilt audience, it makes more sense to independently publish than traditionally publish because you have more control over the final product. Like, you can set the pricing, you can pick out your cover, you can do your own back summary, you can do your own marketing, you can control who you do and don't work with in the future, and you don't have to do a revenue split. It was basically amateur hour of this woman giving her unfounded opinions on something she knows nothing about and saying it so confidently. And of course, none of this even takes into account the fact that if you're part of like a minority group that's underrepresented in publishing, publishers are less likely to publish your story, and independent publishing might be the best way for you to get your work out there. So even though I thought this woman was a stupid clown for what she said and how she confidently said it, I'm gonna put this in Learn Something New. Next is gonna be Cait Corrain. I think this drama mostly dropped in December, but it surged again in February because she tried to clear her name. Basically, Cait Corrain created a bunch of fake Goodreads accounts and voted down books that she thought were similar to her own debut novel, and she specifically seemed to target authors of color. All of this sucks. And then when she came back in February and tried to blame it on her mental illness and spiraling and being out of control, it sucked even more. I'm tired of this girl. I'm tired of what she did. I want to say let's never talk about it again, but unfortunately we have to talk about it because this is a thing that happens and exists, and people need to know that this is what some authors are up against and some authors are doing. Unfortunately, I think we have to put it in Learn Something New, and the reason I'm putting it there is because if other authors are also doing this, or other people have a million Goodreads accounts and are negatively reviewing things to like generally lower the scores of people of color's books or anyone's book, we should be on the lookout for that, especially if that person is an author who feels these other books are their competition. Next is going to be J.D. Barker. This guy had a disgusting marketing campaign that he sent from his own personal email and then tried to claim was his publication. But the general gist of it is that he wanted booktubers to show revealing video footage of them and his book as like an advertisement or a teaser, and he was doing it for an amount of money that wasn't commensurate with the kind of work he was requesting. Again, he was claiming that it was part of a campaign that hadn't fully been brainstormed out and that it was sent in error. I just don't believe any of this, partly because it's from his personal email, partly because this guy is a big name author who's worked with big mainstream authors before, so he like knows the in and outs. I think he just wanted some pervy pics, and then he wanted the videos sent to him for approval, so that meant that they might not even get paid for these pervy pics if for some reason he didn't approve them, which makes it sound even more like he just wanted a bunch of pervy video from people. This guy is gross. I'm never gonna read anything from him now. And it sort of sucks because like he does partner with a lot of big name authors. He is on the Kindle Unlimited list, and his book wasn't a terrible idea, but this marketing idea he had sure was. Because the book influencer sphere is small and niche and seems to be mostly women, and this seems to be something meant to prey on women, I'm gonna have to put this on Can't Get Enough. This is like a special kind of gross predation that we need to be keeping an eye out for in our community and calling out whenever we see. Next is going to be Natasha Bishop. Apparently a bunch of people gave this author low reviews and then continually kept refocusing on her negative reviews and like hashtagging her in it. I have kind of mixed feelings because you should be able to give reviews of books and they should be high or low for any reason you want. But I don't think it's appropriate to tag or hashtag the author, especially if it's a bad review, because reviews aren't for authors and it's not nice just to send mean things to people just because. Also, like, it's one thing to write a review and it's another thing to create video after video after video dumping on someone. The timing of this is also kind of important because Natasha Bishop is a Black author and this review and feedback was coming out during Black History Month, and in fact was a result possibly of a Black whack readathon and a whole bunch of people just not liking the book, which, you know, honestly, the book itself has really good reviews and a lot of the people I follow have positively reviewed the book. The hate didn't really do as much as maybe it would have to like a smaller author, but it's still like not cool, especially if you're tagging the author, so it's like clogging up their feed. It's probably pretty clear by now that I have complicated feelings on the matter. I'm gonna go ahead and put this in not about me because there is definitely a race component involved that I don't feel adequately equipped to tackle. The obvious things here is you can write whatever review you want. Don't tag the author that's mean, and maybe don't continue to make video after video after video about it. Especially if this was like part of a readathon to like uplift a certain community or group of people. For whatever reasons you read one book you don't like, maybe move on and focus on all of the new hidden gems you found. And then last in the author drama is going to be Freydis Moon. The long and the short of it is we found out that Freydis Moon is a white person pretending to be a Hispanic person. This isn't the first time they've done this. And when they were actually a white author, they said some racist stuff, which is why they got canceled and have to keep swapping to these other personas. It sucks because I've read something by Freydis Moon, I really liked it, and I can't recommend it or talk about it anymore now. Thanks for that. It also sucks because I think Freydis Moon is a good author, but for whatever reasons they are doing wild stuff like pretending to be another race and saying racist things. This is gonna be one of those learn something new ones. We've got to tell people about it. It's not cool for you to pretend to be someone or something that you're not. So moving into what I would consider like some generic bookish drama, we're gonna start with censorship at the Hugo Award nominees. This is kind of like a complicated drama, but the long and the short of it is the Hugo Awards were held in China, and it seems like some of the books eligible were stricken from the list specifically because it would upset China, which is not cool, but also I really don't care about book awards. So I'm gonna put this in fine. It's something we need to talk about, and it's something that maybe lowers the prestige of the Hugo Awards and perhaps even like invalidates this past year's results. But because I don't care about awards that much or really understand how they impact bookish marketing or finance or sales or anything like that, I just don't feel like I understand the scope, and I don't want to get into those nitty-gritty details like that. Next is going to be Colonizer Romance, ? So this one comes from To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods, which was a much anticipated new release. And then when it came out, people read it and were upset because they felt that it was a colonizer romance. I'm going to link a couple people's book reviews and explanations of the situation down below. This one was definitely an I'll hear you out one. I haven't read To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods. I might have more feeling about it if I actually read the book. I really enjoyed the discussion and other people's reviews and thoughtful responses, like parsing it out. For me, the major takeaway was classifying this book as a romance was a critical error. That and saying that you were inspired by historic events that were brutal and horrific, and then ever putting the main character in a place where they could romanticize someone who is perpetuating those issues without like doing some more work with that character. Like, it would be one thing if the protagonist was an anti-hero, but I believe the protagonist is portrayed in a way like that you're supposed to relate to them, respect them, generally think they're a good person trying to do good things, but also somehow that person fell in love with an evil person. And I just think it takes more work and time to unpack that than the book really did. And maybe it's just too much to handle in a single book, like you would have needed to dedicate more time just to that one plot thread, let alone later. Also, if I can relate this to a series I've read, the Plated Prisoners series, book 1 in that guild has our main character Oren in love with King Midas, who we find out is a torturer and an abuser and a really bad guy. And she like falls out of love with him to go into the true pairing. And there is a lot of brouhaha about this as potentially not really a romance book when this book first came out too, with like the overall series eventually becoming a romantic series, but this first book, even though it was being sold and classified as a romance, this not being it. I'm wondering if in the fuller context To Gaze Upon Wicked Gods would do the same arc. Next is going to be Readers Take Denver 2024. This is just about someone who made a convention that was too big and planned it poorly. I don't mind stories like this, but to me this is almost not even booktuber bookish drama. Like, technically it is because it's a book convention done by a book influencer. But overall, I think this is just a pass for me because like I I just don't care that much. I usually can recognize when people have poorly planned conventions. We have a lot of documentation about different conventions and festivals that are poorly planned. It wasn't interesting to me, like in any vein, and it also like would never impact me because this is not the kind of thing that I would go to. It sucks for the people who had a bad time, and I'm sorry for them, but at the same time I'm just like not involved enough, and this is not a topic that's interesting for me. Next is going to be Fairyloot Drama and just like book subscription dramas in general. I kind of like wrap them all together. This is stuff I see on the periphery. I almost never click on a video specifically for it, but sometimes it's included. It's like a never talk about this again. If you don't like it, don't buy it. And also I don't really like book subscriptions or rando subscriptions of things as a general rule. Just don't do it. Next is going to be illustrated cover art is appealing for children when the books are not meant for children. This is specifically in relation to romance covers where there's this growing trend for like really cute, cartoony like covers to be on books that have spicy content. Overall, I think this is a stupid talking point by stupid people because number one, these books are placed in adult sections. They're not placed in the children's section. So like if your kid accidentally comes across this book and thinks it's for them, that's kind of like a question of where are they and why are they not being chaperoned better when they're in the library or in the bookstore. Also the whole like what if kids get a hold of this book that happens to have spicy material conversation is stupid to me. And maybe this relates directly to like my personal experience, but my mother used to give me books that had incredibly spicy or graphic scenes in them like as recommendations, and she didn't care about how graphic anything in the book was. And like how I handled that as a young teen to like mid-teen, if I got to a point in the book where things were happening that I didn't like, I would skip that part or skim over it and keep reading the book. And maybe it was something that I would read in full and then go talk to my mom about. And the fact that she would recommend these books let me know that any book I ever wanted to read ever was on the table, and I could come to her with anything that I read in a book and we could talk about it. And for me, that was a great element of our relationship and like the conversations we had. So when I see kids with books that have spicy elements in them, especially if it's just spice, no matter how old the kid is, I don't necessarily think that's a mistake. I think maybe that's something the parent knows about and is fine with for whatever reasons. Honestly, as a young teen and mid-teen, things that like really impacted me in books were not spicy scenes. It was like significant violence and gore, especially if it was based on a true story or part of the memoir. And honestly, some of the most horrific and disturbing things I read were part of required reading. So I don't even know what to say to that when people are like, we gotta protect the children from these spicy books that are in the adult section, that are clearly labeled, and that parents might have honestly chosen for their kids to read or recommended to them. This is one where I'm gonna put it in, I'll hear you out, because I want to have the conversation, but I have very definitive opinions on this, and that it's really none of your business what somebody else's kids are reading. So this moves me into bookish influencer drama, starting with a news article where people said that TikTok had turned books into the new fast fashion. And for me, this is a never talk about this again kind of scenario. This is such a dumb, stupid take from such an ignorant, stupid person. For starters, books having rapid release and having tropes and genres and all that stuff have been consistently pushed and increased forever. And while bookish influencing may intersect with that in a new and interesting way, labeling it like this as an automatically negative thing with automatically negative results is just not the way to go about it. And I don't think it acknowledges all the potential good that BookTok and BookTube have done. Not everything has been good all the time, but there has been like a rise of different kinds of authors with different sorts of genres that usually wouldn't get attention. So if you're not evaluating what has been happening in the publishing trend and you're just making like a blanket statement that this thing has a negative impact without looking at it from a more nuanced lens, I'm just not interested in talking to you or discussing your take. And maybe you're in the wrong place looking at the wrong recs, which considering you curate your own feed, that's a you problem and not necessarily a platform-wide issue. Next is going to be that the AAMBC nominated St. Martin's Press for changing the literary landscape. AAMBC stands for African Americans on the Move Book Club. The reason this nomination is an issue issue is because last year we started a social media boycott of St. Martin's Press and St. Martin's Press imprints. So nominating them for doing like good work during this time sort of undermines the boycott and sweeps under the rug some of the issues that we have with St. Martin's Press. For me, this is like a fine drama because it's worth noting that despite the boycott, despite the fact that we're trying to raise awareness for St. Martin's Press not necessarily being fair in how they give out arcs or how they consider different influencers for reading their books, and also wanting like a more concrete statement, things are going business as usual for St. Martin's Press. They have little to no impact based off of that. And that's something that we need to know when we consider like what we want to achieve with the boycott, and also whether or not the boycott is effective and what other moves we could make if other moves need to happen. And also the AAMBC, the African Americans on the Move Book Club, nominated Kiera Lewis as a literary activist for this year. The whole Kiera Lewis situation makes me kind of sad. She first came on my radar last year because she was sexualizing specific individuals, and when they asked her to stop, she kind of like got defensive about it, which, to be fair to her, as I said in that video, I felt like there was a certain element of racism in calling her out specifically versus like calling out a trend that was inappropriate in BookTok. And also they kind of like sent her mixed signals where like they flew her out and were like uplifting her and praising her for bringing attention to the hockey team until they weren't, which like you have a right to withdraw consent for being sexualized, don't get me wrong, but I can see where for her that might have felt very abrupt and confusing. But unfortunately, even though that's the only drama that I've ever covered with her, that's not where it stopped. She also crossed picket lines to promote different TV shows and stuff when the actors and the writer's strike was going on, and arguably the only reason that she and other influencers were picked up to recommend that kind of stuff was because people who would normally do that work were on strike, and that was, at least in my eyes and most people's eyes, a form of crossing picket lines versus offering a review. And then even worse, she decided she would read Harry Potter for the first time in January and has like blown it up and made it a big deal again, which like, why? You know that author is transphobic and awful, and there's a lot of racist stuff in her work. And like, as a whole, I would just rather ignore her, but unfortunately I can't, because now people are suggesting she's like literary activist of the year, which like, where's her activism? Is all this bad behavior the activism? Because if that's the case, then like, she's actively supporting stuff that maybe we should be condemning. So this one is gonna go and I'll hear you out because it makes me tired and it's stuff we need to know, but like, I just wish it wasn't happening. Next is gonna be BookTok is too spicy, and I'm gonna put this in pass. To me, this is a you issue and not a BookTok issue, because if your feed is full of spicy recommendations in BookTok, then that's on you and your scroll. Also, if we're gonna be real here for a minute, I have a TikTok, but I don't for reals use it that much, if at all, and I don't really care for it as a platform, so like whatever's going on in BookTok is not that big a deal. I do hate the conversation on principle because it says a lot of derogatory things about readers for no reason, and it puts a lot of books down for no reason, and it shames people again for no reason. And a lot of times people call this like erotica or porn when words have meaning, and that's not what most of these books are. Also, like, I don't like all the hate for romance, which is literally the backbone of publishing. I don't always love romance as a genre. I don't like every book that crosses my feed, but it is the whole reason that publishing still exists and continue to thrive here in 2024. And if you have an issue with romance books, like, don't read them, bro. I always just kind of hate when other people just randomly decide to hate on things that other people are liking for no apparent reason. In this case, because romance is predominated by female readers and most of BookTok that's loving on these romance books are women, it also has like this edge of sexism and not letting people just enjoy their thing tied into it, especially because from what I've seen, people who complain about BookTok being too quote-unquote spicy are men. Like, I don't know, if you don't like it, maybe just don't look at it. It's not the only thing that's going on there, you know? And then last generic thing is going to be the St. Martin's Press boycott. I had to cover this a little bit when I talked about their nomination, and this one is a learn something new. I learned about this one a little bit later than other people did. I think this might have actually happened in December, November, and it's something that like came onto my radar more so in January. I'll have links to the boycott itself as well as a couple other videos to describing it, but basically social influencers are just not giving reviews for books provided by St. Martin's Press at this time, and until they come out with a statement, we might be reading those books, but we're not going to be publicly reviewing them or giving any promotion or attention to them online. So now we're going to move into what I'm classifying as review drama, starting with politics don't have anything to do with books and reading is apolitical. This one's like a never talk about this again. As someone who loves to do deep dives and talk about themes and implications of things, obviously I'm concerned with the politics and the theming and the way things are framed in books. To me, even apolitical reads often have politics and like social conventions explored and discovered within them. And I think you can make apolitical reads political. And likewise, I think there are like some inherent political things to stuff that might otherwise be apolitical, and all of that comes down to like your personal perspective, your thoughts, your feelings. And I want to talk about it, break it down, deconstruct it with you, get a new view. I don't know why people get mad when you say reading is political or reading that book supports certain political things. You can say like, oh, I didn't know that, or like, oh, I hadn't fully considered it, or maybe like, oh, that's not even something I paid attention to when I picked this one book up. Or even like just generally apologizing if maybe you made a mistake or whatever. But I think it is weird to get angry and ranty over like minutia that we should just be discussing and exploring and making plans on going forward. Next is going to be 3-star reviews are mean and don't acknowledge all the work someone has done on a book. I have my own personal video on this, and I also point out Don't Fret Read Books as well as Jess Owen's coverage of this, and I'll link those all below as well. Even though I engaged with this, I'm putting it in the past category. And the reason for that is I have covered reviewer and author dynamics several times before on this channel, with this latest one being my most sympathetic take possible. And that unfortunately you can work really hard on something and it can still be bad. You know, I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. I think if it comes up again though, I'm just not going to engage any further with it. I can't imagine a world where I would have anything new to say, and there's no point in just repeating yourself over and over again. But I still know that new people in the scene are going to be hitting this for the first time, and that's fine. They can have that conversation. I can just not be part of it. The next one is going to be about ARC reviews. Are people who receive ARCs required to leave reviews? Is it better to leave a review for an ARC if you didn't like the book, or to go without a review? These are all kinds of like open questions, as well as authors venting their frustration that readers do not leave reviews, and that's like lost income to them in theory. I feel like this one is an I'll hear you out kind of topic. Sometimes it gets extreme. You know, I have some definitive opinions, like writing a review is free labor, and a book does not begin to pay for all of the hours and times it takes to read something, make notes, and then write a review as well as posting it. So an ARC is like a gift, and the review is like a nice thing that people do. And whether you write a review for an ARC or for just a book in general, that's nice free labor you've done for someone. But at the same time, I'm not unsympathetic to an author's struggle to get reviews on their book to help them start ranking in Amazon searches and trends. And I understand their frustration when people take ARCs and then don't review their books. I also like to hear like an author's preference. Like, do they prefer someone not leave a review versus leaving a negative review when it's an ARC specifically? Do they prefer you wait to leave that negative review until after the book is released? Like, there's some etiquette there that is worth discussing and talking about. And in particular, I don't think ARCs, which are advanced reader copies, are something that everyone in the bookish sphere or reading sphere knows about. So introducing them to that information, I think, is like important. And because it's like a little lesser known topic that also kind of covers a hot and heavy review topic with like a slightly different angle, I want to keep it up and circulating. Next is going to be Can't Review a DNF. This is an oldie but goodie. I'll link to the video where this actually came up as conversation. For me, this is a never talk about this again. Obviously, you can review a book no matter how far in you've gone on it. It's dumb to say otherwise. And then last one is going to be Goodreads is a bad review platform. This one I'm bringing up because Haley Hughes recently created a video that says delete your Goodreads account. And in it, she goes on to explain a review she left being deleted as a quote-unquote false review, even though it was a review she placed with pertinent information regarding the book. I won't go in too heavy into it because Haley Hughes herself has sort of said that like the whole situation has left her like exhausted and she doesn't want to like re-stir up this person or that drama. I do have a video about it here if you want to look at the original drama and why she posted that review. My problem is that Goodreads deleted her review and a whole bunch of other people's reviews because they were 1 stars and possibly fake reviews, where several of those reviews were actually by people who had read the book, and also the 1-star review and the reason they gave that review was valid and about that book, specifically about the book's dedication. For a long time, I've continued to use Goodreads as a reviewing platform, and I've referenced it when I'm talking about books in my reading wrap-ups, mostly because it is the largest reviewing platform on the internet, and they monitor their reviews in any way, shape, or form, which has pros and cons. But to me, the pro is like you're getting uncensored, largest circle of opinions you can. So even if some of them are fake or invalid or review bombing or whatever, it also gives people who haven't finished the book or who haven't bought the book like the opportunity to write a review and for it to be uncensored and otherwise unreined in. The fact that now Goodreads is randomly applying these rules in favor of the author when they complain means that I'm looking for a new review platform. Currently I'm on Storygraph, although I have to be honest with you, I don't like it, like at all. And in fact, I tried using it last year and stopped because I didn't like it. I'm also on Fable right now and I'm really enjoying that for like the book clubs element, but I don't love the reviews and there's like precious few star ratings there. So I don't feel like I'm getting a good sample size when I'm looking for like overall ratings and reviews of books. I don't know, maybe I'm gonna have to get hardcover or something else. But my rambly point is that Goodreads, unfortunately, is not a good or reliable platform for reviews anymore. The fact that they've decided to like censor and delete various reviews for unspecified reasons and won't listen to appeals or anything like that means that I can no longer trust them as a review source. And I am still on Goodreads, still tracking my reading there, but I'm actively looking for another platform and I'm actively encouraging other people to do the same thing. I'm really hoping that maybe this is going to be like when we all came together over the title of the genre Reverse Harem and decided to change it over to Why Choose because the word harem is offensive. As book influencers and book reviewers, we can all just collectively pick a new review social media platform and go to that instead, because Goodreads is not respecting our reviews or respecting our rights as reviewers. It's censoring us when we don't want to be censored and not censoring bad faith reviews, as we can see in like the Cait Corrain situation. I am probably going to be making a separate video about why we need to change our review platform from Goodreads over to something else and like calling us all to come together to do that. I almost don't care which one it is, even if it is Storygraph, just as long as we all move to a platform. And I'm also going to talk about like some of the things that are holding us back from doing that as a like collective group as well. So more on that is to come. But for now, this is going to be all of the bookish drama I've known about starting from January 2024 through May 2024. But talk to me. Did I miss any of the drama? Give me all that good tea in those comments down below. And as always, keep reading.